all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD.
All right, all you positive heads, welcome. Welcome one and all. I am so grateful that you have joined me today. Today, I had an idea because of some things going on in my world, of something to talk about. And when I thought about this idea for a second, I thought, well, I'm not really sure how much I do have to talk about around this topic. And what's interesting about it is that I kept being shown little signs and symbols, and in particular, a snail shell or a spiral. And this is what I'm supposed to talk about today, the spiral and the cycles that we all go through. The cycle of our life, the cycle of our journey, our soul's journey, and the cycles of creation. Everything that we exist in all of creation, started in the center and then spiraled out from there. And so this was the idea that I had. And what's funny is that earlier today, I thought to myself, well, all right, like there's a bunch of stuff to talk about with this, but like, what am I actually going to talk about? And I kept kind of like questioning it all day long. And what I kept hearing was just go sit down and record, and it will just come like it always does. And I kept questioning it, but like, yeah, but I need more. And it's funny, you guys, I'm telling you this because I want you to know that this is an example of where our conscious mind gets in our way. And yes, I do it too. We all do it. We're human. And, it's nice to be able to recognize it sooner than later. And so when I recognize that, okay, I'm just kind of talking myself out of this topic, then I was able to just let it go. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll just turn on the mic and start talking. But before I do, I just want to make like a note or two just of the things that have been coming to my mind once I just let it go. And once I put pen to paper, it was like a spiral. It was like things just started coming and coming. And so I don't know really where this conversation is going to go, because honestly, my mind jumped all around. And when I see it like that, I see it like, bouncing around in a circle and almost creating like a star pattern. And it creates a pattern. It does. And that's kind of where I'm going with what I said, is that there's a pattern to all of this. There's a pattern to our cycles. There's a pattern to our journey. And I find it extremely interesting. So I'm supposed to talk about spirals today and cycles. And the first thing I thought about, one of the first things I thought about, was time. And time's a very interesting concept. And, we always talk about time not existing. But when we look at time in our physical dimension here and how it works, there's been so many theories on time travel and all these things. And if you guys have been listening to any episodes that I've done lately, I've talked about, watching Star Trek and becoming a huge fan as of late. Well, I also lately became a fan of Stargate SG-1. And I really love this series. I've just been watching it now from the beginning. And I know it's very old, but what's really cool about it is there's so many really cool nuggets. And one of them is this. They went, well, if you guys haven't watched this show, they travel through a wormhole in to get through different places in the galaxy. And the wormhole is a circle, which is basically what a spiral is and what we use to define or to represent our cycles. And it's also what we use to travel through. And it's a water portal, which I think is really cool. But so they traveled to this world where they were in contact with a very, very advanced civilization. This civilization was so advanced that they absolutely understood mind over matter. They could make themselves disappear, anything disappear, things reappear. They could basically materialize or dematerialize anything that they wanted because they just understood how it really worked. And so later on in another episode, there was another advanced civilization that they had come into contact with that had come to Earth with them, and they needed to get out. And because, of course, they wanted to start experimenting on them and things like that. But they figured that this other advanced civilization that they had met before would be a great place for them to go. But it was really, really far away. And this being from the advanced civilization started to explain to him, well, it just seems far to you. In the galaxy from point A to point B, if you look at it like that in a straight line, it looks like a really long distance. He said, look at it like this. And he took a branch and he said, when I hold it out like this, with my arm stretched out, from this point to this point over here in my other hand, it looks like a really long distance. But what happens if we do this? And he put his hands together, putting the two ends of the branch together, forming a circle. And he said, now they're not so far away, are they? And the guy he was talking to said, oh, like in our reality, one of our scientists named Einstein talked about this concept. He said that it was like folding space. And the advanced being said, no, not really. And I thought that was really great because I would have never caught that if I hadn't just done a QHHT session with someone who had talked about this. And what he said about it was that we don't fold space, we actually wind it or spiral it, just like a wormhole would spiral or, go round and round in a circle. And that makes a whole lot more sense, right? A winding of it or a spiraling of it. And I find it really, really interesting that the ancients somehow knew this. For example, the Mayan civilization, they represented the zero with a snail shell, the spiral. And you guys, when I thought about doing this, I saw a post on Facebook, of course, that literally was a spiral snail shell. And right before I started recording today, I was cleaning out my garage and I found a little plant pot, and in it were snail shells and one that was this perfect little spiral. Just another indication like, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be talking about today. And so what I also find really, really interesting is, so I was watching again Stargate last night, and one of the scientists was trying to explain wormholes and how they work. And the way she described it was, take an apple, and if you were to go from one point around the circumference of the apple and try to get to that other point, it would take a long time. But if you were like a little worm and you could just go straight through, it would be a lot quicker to get to that point. And I loved that analogy because when I started thinking about the folding of space, I looked it up. I wanted to see what Einstein's theory was. Well, guess what it was about? Wormholes. It was about wormholes. I was like, what? I never knew this before. This is stuff that I'm sure has come across my awareness. It has to have. I love science. It's what I've been studying my whole life, but I wasn't ready for it, or maybe didn't even care to look at it. It was like, just went right over my head. I never really paid attention to it. But I find that really interesting, that back to the wormhole, this folding of space, and that the apple analogy was used, because the apple is a magical fruit. And I learned that somewhere from some witchy show that I watched at one point in time. But I looked it up, the symbolism of the apple tree, because I wanted to actually read it to you guys. And I have this really cool book called Signs and Symbols Source Book by Adele Nazadar. And I want to read you what it says about the apple tree. The apple tree is a tree of the underworld, a tree of immortality, and sacred to Apollo. The mythical Isle of Avalon, meaning orchard from afal, the old Welsh word for apple, is the resting place of Celtic kings and heroes, and one of the places where King Arthur is meant to wait until he is needed to rise once more to protect his people. For Celtic people, the apple tree symbolized the world tree, the axis of the universe. They considered the apple the most magical of fruits, a fruit of immortality and prophecy. At Samhain, or Halloween, the time of apple harvest, this fruit has a large part to play in the rituals and celebrations, including divinatory practices. The apple itself contains a potent magical symbol within. If it is cut across its equator, with the stalk at the top, there are 5 pips inside, contained within a 5-pointed star or a pentagram. The pentagram, in turn, can be the basis of the golden spiral. The spherical shape of the apple symbolizes eternity. And I'm just going to stop there for a second and see how I went from spiral to apple back to spiral. Had no clue that was going to happen, but that's really cool, right? So it goes on to say, in the biblical story where Eve persuaded Adam to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge, she also handed him the pentagram hidden inside the fruit. Here, the pentagram stands for the spiritual nature of man, and eating it awakens Adam to new possibilities. The flesh combines with the spirit, and immediately Adam and Eve cover their genitals, signifying sexual awakening. In gypsy wedding ceremonies, it is customary to cut the apple in the way described above, the bride and groom each eating a half. Magical apples that confer immortality can be plucked from mythological trees all over the world. In Scandinavian stories, apples guarded by the goddess Idun keep the gods youthful until the end of the universe. The Hesperides, in Greek myth, are nymphs that tend a beautiful garden in which grows an apple tree, or trees, whose fruit also confer immortality. These apples are understandably highly sought after, and were given as a wedding gift to the goddess Hera by Gaia, the earth goddess.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. The concept for the book initially came to me in a dream and has been followed by a next level amount of synchronicity, confirming for me that the information in the book is pertinent to get to the world at this moment in our collective evolution. In the book, I share the 8 keys to manifesting abundance that I've personally discovered over 25 years of trial, error, and deep exploration, including one golden key that ultimately ties them all together. I think most of you will agree with me that talk is a bit cheap, especially these days, and results speak the loudest of all. Well, these keys have led me to manifesting incredible results, such as an Inc. fastest growing private company, uncanny health, incredible relationships, and success with this podcast. However, I'm not any more special than you, and anyone can apply this information to achieve incredible results in their own life. I also believe waking up our planet by sharing these keys to abundance is the quickest way to help us to transition our home into the planet of paradise it is destined to become, which is why I'd like to gift the book to you at goldenkey.gift when you use the golden key code POSITIVEHEAD. I would also like to invite you to create your own unique golden key code so you in turn can gift the book to others, as well as invite you to participate in a unique abundance manifestation game with me and the other readers that is outlined in detail at the end of the book and on the website, where readers are also going to share the inspiring results of their abundance manifestation experiments. Lastly, I'm going to practice what I preach by sharing 50% of the abundance generated from the golden game and sale of the other golden goodies on the website with you and all the other readers. So, if you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. Also, if you end up loving and appreciating your gifted copy of the book, please take a moment to go to Amazon and give it a review, which will greatly help me reach and unlock more hearts with the Golden Key.
How beautiful is that? I'm so glad I looked that up in this book because who knew? And I never really thought about the apple symbolism so much in the story of Adam and Eve and how much that symbolized the light of man and our spirituality. And how interesting that 5-pointed star symbolizes light. The number 5 is actually synonymous with the light. The number 5 is our 5th chakra, which is also synonymous with light and wisdom. And the star, that's obviously the light. We're all born from the stars, right? Like we talked about last week. We are all made of star stuff. We are that golden spiral of light. That is what is emanating from our center, just like an apple, just like the center of an apple. And when I love this, because you look at an apple and it is like the picture of a vortex. When you look at, like, you eat an apple and at its core, it's like the perfect little vortex wormhole picture. And also another thought I had too is that, this year is a 5-year. And the number 5 in, I like to look at all these ancient doctrines and things. So in the Pythagorean doctrine, it says that 5 is an eminently spherical and circular number because in every multiplication, it restores itself and is found terminating the number. It is change of quality because it changes what has 3 dimensions into the sameness of a sphere by moving circularly and producing light. And so light is why the number 5 is referred to it. And that's incredibly interesting because we have the 5th element of ether, which is also light. And now that I'm talking about this, I'm also having a memory that I had a dream last night about the number 5. And it wasn't just about the number 5, but there were 5 points and not like a star, but it was very obvious to me that there were 4 and a 5th. And so that 5th was the ether. That was like the awareness of that dream. And as I talk about it, I remember it. And so the 5th element, our light, our 5th chakra, our perspective, our wisdom. This is such a beautiful thing to always be aware of. Where is our perspective? How are we shining our light? This is another thing I wanted to actually talk about today, was maintaining our vibration, maintaining a very healthy vibration. How do we maintain our light? How do we keep that light shining really, really bright? And I was thinking about ways that I do that. And one of the ways I learned early on was that, and we talk about this a lot, but shutting things off. But I had to shut things off in a way where I was very aware of the energy of that thing and how that thing made me feel. So for example, a scary movie or a violent movie, I realized very quickly that those things didn't make me feel so good after watching them, during watching them, after watching them. And that was throwing my vibration off. And so I decided I didn't want to have that type of energy in my space. So I stopped watching that stuff. The same thing went for music. I used to listen to all sorts of music that had not so nice lyrics, let's just say. And now I listen to pretty much all conscious music. There is a huge, huge difference because it turns into what we're focused on, right? Even watching the television. Sometimes even if you're watching a show that seems like fairly just whatever, it's just funny. There's those commercials in between. And you're in this hypnotic state when you're watching TV. You don't realize it, but all these things that you're hearing are actually programming you. So it's so important that we can shut it all off to be able to maintain keep our own program going and not allow an external program coming in to mess with what we already know inside. We already know how bright and shiny we are, right? And all we need to do is keep reminding ourselves that we are made of stardust, that is all we are. We are the light, and we are going to continue to be it. I love you all so much. That's it for me today. I'm going to leave you with a song. This is Deodova, the birthplace of the sun. Until next time, love you all.
Also, quickly, before we cue up today's song, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key, audio or ebook, as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the code POSITIVEHEAD. I also wanted to remind you that I will now be doing a live Q&A every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time on the new social audio app Clubhouse. I have really been wanting to connect and interact with all of you more for quite some time, and I'm super excited to now have 2 new ways to do it. First, if you're already on Clubhouse, be sure to follow me and click the little bell on my profile and select to always be notified when I go live on the Clubhouse app. And if you'd like to connect on an even more intimate Zoom gathering once a month, now you can do that too by registering at goldenkey.gift.
To me, to me, to me, to me, to away, to away, to away, mambo aku tetau tabu batun mampu tetua buaka buat tumu tubu aku kaya apu batu no apu batu kaya apu batu apu buapu tukut ya bu batabu Tumakawi nawe tanukawi nawe tanukawi nawe tamu tumunawe kuwe tumunawe kuwe tumunawe kuwe matatawin no pawe tawe tapawe kamawo kamawo butunuwe kamuwe nete amubu kituwe na mama yene amabuya tawe na buya tawe na bahau tamuni hutua nuhayo hutua nuhaye hutua uhayo hutamuni hutua nuhayo hutua nuhaye hutua uhayo Mama pawe awonai Imama pawe, ya wote kawe. Nawo, wawo, nawo, we. Nawo, wawo, nawo, we. Hip hop, puta hamu na we bitamo. Hip hop, puka putu neni hamu. Hip hop, pika putu hama paka putu hemi namo. Hip hop, pika putu hemi namo. Awewe likaiye, amelele we kaiye.